Alright, I feel this is a conversation that needs to be had when a topic like this is talked about. There's a lot of strong opinions, usually so strong they aren't really constructive. So I want to start off with this. I consume a ton of Destiny content. Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, I read hundreds of comments a day, sometimes thousands. I see what people are saying and I see it in-game. Skill-based versus connection-based is kind of rough around the edges, because here's the truth. I found that no one really wants to be around the conversation. So there's a lot to talk about. But before we do, a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, World of Tanks. You might have heard of it before. It's a massive free-to-play game, and what's nice is that when you download it, as the game is downloading, there's various videos and tips on how to play the game to get you ready. Once you're in there, it puts you in a boot camp to get those basics going and get you ready. That way, you get all your movement, your game mechanics down. And once I got going, I couldn't get over how gorgeous this game is. And if you haven't played it in a while, back in 2018, it got a new engine and it looks and plays extremely smooth. There are 11 nations of tanks, 5 tank classes to choose from: light, medium, heavy, destroyer, and SPGS. There's over 600 tanks combined across those 5 classes, so there's a ton of customization to really fine-tune how you like to play. As an example, I jumped in with a light tank because they're all about mobility, speed, and stealth. I would actually try to find a heavier tank friendly, that way when we found an enemy, I would break off and just start zooming for the flanks. There's a ranked mode and even a battle pass. It isn't limited to that though. You can go into random battles, there are missions, campaigns, and more. It's pretty cool. In between games, you're in your garage, advancing your crew. That way they can help you with things like repairs as the games go on. There's over 30 maps, and as you get ready, it has a very good soundtrack, like the music hypes you. It seems like every time I play a new map. There's a lot of them. And each map has its own terrain. There's a lot of strategy that goes on. World of Tanks has won multiple awards. It's been very fun. There's a link down below at the top of the description, and for new players, enter the code TANKTASTIC, and it gives 7 premium days, 500 gold, and a premium tank. So go check it out. And thanks again to World of Tanks for supporting my channel. With matchmaking in Destiny 2, there's a lot to talk about today, but the theme for most of it is going to be a middle ground. And I'm going to bring it up a couple times because I think that is going to be the next step, if there is a next step. Now, there are some players that love skill-based matchmaking, others dislike it, some love connection-based matchmaking, not taking into account skill at all, and then others dislike that. But there's also a third challenger that comes into play. It's lobby balance, and that goes 2 ways. One of those ways is being a whole bunch of good players against a whole bunch of not so good players. And the other one is going to be stacked team balance, not matching team versus team. That's its own separate thing that doesn't really get talked about. But a long time ago, about 4 or so years ago, I made a video about skill-based matchmaking in Destiny 1, and I bring this to you because it might help get across the mindset of skill-based matchmaking in a higher skill bracket. And maybe some of you out there might feel how I felt way back with skill-based matchmaking in Destiny 1. Now, the short version is that back in D1, I was a top 100 player in Rumble, top 50. Back in Destiny 1, I loved Rumble, and I didn't play it for elo, I played it because I enjoyed it. Now, it got to a point where I started having really long search times, like over 10 minutes, and where a lot of my friends and some of my friends were getting them near instantly. At least in Destiny standards, 10-15 seconds finds a game and it goes. Mine was taking over 10 minutes, and when I got in the game, every single game was laggy. Now, I'm a content creator. There were players that know who I was, so we would message, we'd talk, but the more we talked, it turned out the majority of them were overseas. I'm in the United States. One player, hey, I'm in Australia. Another, I'm in Dubai. So in a peer-to-peer matchmaking game, these games I was being put in not only were tough, but the connection was overseas. Someone was laggy. It was either gonna be me or it was gonna be them, whoever was pulling host. But with where I'm getting is that skill-based matchmaking was so strict. It would place me in these games, and skill-based matchmaking in place is why it was happening. The long queue times, because it's matching on the skill, it's not gonna find the game, so that distance of search just keeps expanding, getting wider and wider, all the way to the Netherlands, and so on. So let's fast forward to Destiny 2. I think a lot of Destiny vets would agree, subjectively of course, that the connections overall in Destiny 2 far superior than Destiny 1. Now sure, there are some laggy players you're gonna come up against, but nowhere near as much as Destiny 1. We didn't call it laggy banner back in D1 just randomly. And as I go further, you have to remember, someone's perception is their reality. They experience something and that's just how it feels, man. And right here is where I think a lot of players find issue with skill-based that don't like it, and where other players liked skill-based. We don't know what skill system behind the scenes is going on in Destiny 2. It is hidden, but every player is designated a hidden skill rating. It's just under our noses. We don't know where it is, where it comes from, how we're getting better, how we're getting worse. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna use a ranking 1 to 50. 1 being a brand new player, 50 being the best of the best in the game. So that would mean a mid to high 40s. They're extremely good, 50 being at the top, and 1 to 10, they're starting off, or they're just not quite there yet with their skill level. Back before this connection-based matchmaking update, these skill-based matchmaking parameters were very strict. And we know they were strict because of how long the queue times were. I was getting 8 to 10 minute queue times, and then while in the game, the matches were extremely competitive. And I'm talking about quick play right now. We're not even talking about ranked. And when you're there, no one likes to lose, period, even if you're just having fun. So a lot of players put on their best stuff and they try to win. I don't mind a competitive match at all, but to me, in a public lobby, I feel there shouldn't be harsh skill-based matchmaking. That's just a personal thing, because that doesn't make sense to me. I'm gonna play no matter what, but I've always felt that something like that harsh, strict skill-based matchmaking is for ranked, it's for competitive. But to go on a little bit further, these games took forever just to find the match, and every game was like trials competitiveness-wise. There's very little diversity, and a lot of people say, well, I can't just have fun. Well, it's kind of true, because I mean, I'm kind of a weapon gypsy, I review weapons, and if you've played me in the Crucible, I'm probably using something far off that you haven't seen in a long time, but I'm usually reviewing something. So as an example, if I were to use a 180 hand cannon, it's one of the worst archetype in the Crucible right now. Extremely difficult to use in a lobby where everyone has over a 2 KD using Gnawing Hungers. So that's kind of what I think people mean by, like, you just can't have fun and use what you want. Because especially up in that higher skill base, man, it is go big or go home, trial style competitive. Now on the flip end, on the lower skill bracket, those players, they were playing with similar skill. And I think a lot of players that aren't liking this right now, there's some players that just aren't quite there yet with their skills. And I think a lot of players that mostly play PvE, but are forced a lot of times to come play PvP for a catalyst or a quest. With skill-based matchmaking in place, they could go in there and just be done with it. They're not playing against insane players. They're playing with similar skill or similar-minded players. And that, again, is due to skill-based matchmaking being strict. It's like 2 the number. On a scale of 1 to 50, a rank 45 is matching other 45s, 44, 46, 47, and up to 50. That ranked 10 person was matching 10s, 11s, and 12s. So there's that huge gap. So when they flipped the switch to connection-based matchmaking, that went out the window. From what I've seen, researched, and can tell, there's nothing. No filters in place, no parameters to search. It just is. Now, the only thing that is taken into account is one player's connection to another. And on this note, I do feel connection is key because I played so many games that were laggy. Connection, I believe, is what makes the game run properly. If the game isn't running properly, you have issues. So when connection-based matchmaking got turned on, while yes, I do feel that very strict, like within 1 of ELO, skill-based matchmaking should not be in a public lobby. That doesn't necessarily mean that I believe that there should be none at all. And that's one thing to notice as I go on. I do feel that it's all or nothing with Bungie. It's either within 1 of ELO, very strict skill-based, or just not there at all. Like, where's the middle ground? There has to be a middle ground here. I've seen talks from both sides. Again, I consume a lot of content. Reddit, my videos, Twitter, all over. I see these conversations. In my Discord, I see these conversations, which, by the way, a link to my Discord is down below in the description. It's an extremely awesome place to go. It's a judge-free zone. We go in there, we talk Destiny, and we have fun. But I've seen some players say that all these good players, all they want to do is just stomp the not-so-good players into the ground. I see a lot of players rejecting that, saying, no, man, all I want to do is chill. I don't want to have a long queue time. I don't want to have laggy games. I just want to go in there and hang out. While there is a lot of truth to that, I personally haven't talked to a single player that outright is going to say, yeah, I want to go out there and pub stomp people. Then again, I'm not sure that they would say it out loud. The truth is, there are players that do. I've personally seen them. I played against them. I see them in LFG sites, the Unbroken, the Flawless 6 stacks, all running meta weapons. They go out there and they want to farm KD and ELO. I believe that that doesn't represent the entirety of players that are just opposed to skill-based matchmaking. But they're there. That's just a type of player. That doesn't really represent people that don't want skill-based matchmaking. They have the reasons, but it definitely isn't what these guys are doing. But with connection-based matchmaking, I've seen a lot of players that really enjoy it, and that's of all skill levels, but I know for a fact there are a lot of players that don't. And I can't speak for the majority, but I do understand. The biggest thing is that it's such a huge shift. For a lot of them, Crucible got way more unenjoyable. Where they could compete before, not so much now. For a lot of them, they turn into someone's punching bag, and that is not a good feeling, and that's where we're going to keep continuing this conversation, because there are a lot of players that do feel like that. And with me, just understand that I play solo about 90% of the time. And with my channel, I talk about the game, I review the game the best that I can. But when I see something like this, it's a player that's 750 light. When I shoot at them and they kind of slow turn at me from a distance and they just melee the air, I hate that. I'm watching how they move. I can see that they're not there yet. And the worst part is that I believe that when you start the game, you're gonna get a Crucible bounty from Shaxx to go play the Crucible. Those players have blue weapons. Maybe they might find their favorite scout rifle in PvE because they just started the game. You know what? I'm gonna go to the Crucible. There's a lot of them that just don't know any better. I don't want those players in my game. While some of them will say, hey, I just got taken out by spare rations, they'll want to go pursue that weapon and come back. But But for a lot of them, it's not a good feeling, and those are the kinds of players that you can lose. Destiny is a PvE game first, let's remember that. And it isn't a case of that person just needing to get better, just to work on it, watch some videos. Because at a certain point, playing against better players, it does improve skill. But I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of seasoned players in Destiny, all of them with their perfect roles that they want to go in and slay out. A lot of these players are going in with just gear they have no idea about, blue gear, a random SMG that they found. Those players aren't learning anything. They're not taking away anything from this match that we're playing. I've seen these players quit the game mid-game. I've seen some players, true story. I don't want to put the gameplay out there, but I saw a player had trouble with their tracking. They had a lot of weird and odd movement. They had on a raid emblem. I looked at their lifetime stats on Destiny Tracker, a legitimate lifetime KD of 0.4. I've never played that in a long time. And again, true story, for some of these players, I've literally messaged them and said, hey, anything you want, let's do it. You want to go get the Lunas? I'm down, just whatever. Just let me know. Like, I felt bad playing against them. Now, should I feel bad? That's kind of a me thing, right? That's how I feel about it. But I just legit don't want them in my game. It's not fun for me, and it's definitely not fun for them. I don't want to be responsible for their bad experience. I want them to love this game as much as I do. And I say it all the time, it's one of the primary purposes of my channel. Games are a little bit more fun when you're doing a little bit better in them, when you're succeeding. So a lot of players don't like this word, but these particular players do need to be protected so they can get better, if that makes sense. Matching them against players like me or Meta 6 stacks doesn't give them a shot to get better. I'm sorry, it doesn't. We talk about skill gap in Destiny 2. Some people think that there's a joke, but when you really think about it, there's a ton of subclasses, weapons, loadouts. There's a lot to learn. But here's something about this season, this connection-based matchmaking season that was turned on that I found to be true. This iteration of matchmaking is great for group play, probably the best that it's ever been, but it's also probably the worst iteration for a solo player. And I say this because of my personal experience, and we can chime in the comment section and talk about it. I can play with my clanmates, subs, I can play Crucible with my wife again. We can all go in, we can have a good time. Some games we get rolled, some games we roll on people. It's all over the place. My wife wouldn't play Destiny 2 with me. She actually recently got back into it, but when she played my lobbies with skill-based, it was zero fun for her. And she didn't have all the time to go farm all the great spares and things like that, so she just had the gear that she had, and she was playing against a whole bunch of 2+ KD players. She had zero fun, but when she played some games solo, she had a better time. But now in these groups, since matchmaking is all over the place, we play good players, we play not so good players. It's not set in stone. But as a solo player, where yes, you're gonna get variety in a stacked team with friends, but a solo player, especially the lower skilled, they feel this the most. Because I've imagined a lot of players that I've played against recently, sometimes there's a 4-stack, then me, and then another, and then we're playing against 6 random players. If the 4-stack on my team has high elo, and the majority of the 6 randoms are just lower skilled, it's a disaster. And I'm telling you, those are the players that you can lose. So to me, this conversation of connection-based, skill-based, I would like to find a middle ground with all this. For one, I especially want new and lesser skilled players on the very lower end to be protected. There's a big expansion coming with Beyond Light. Xbox has the Game Pass now with Destiny 2. That's huge for Bungie. I don't think throwing them in there with the general player base, like right now getting mountaintopped and 600 AR down, is a good look. The second thing, in this make-believe 1 to 50 system I have going on, I would like for ranks 1 to 10 not to play ranks 40 to 50, if the option's available. Now that middle 30, they can float around. So basically level 1 to level 39, level 11 all the way up to 50. Obviously that isn't set in stone, but I think you get the idea. Just the extreme ends, try not to match them. The third thing is looking at stacks versus stacks. I'm now at a point that if I see a 6-stack in quick play and I have just 5 random teammates, I just back out. Now with connection based, I do give it the benefit of the doubt. I'll get in the game because sometimes there is a stack in there trying to have fun. If I see a couple bows, maybe one of them's using a Gnawing Hunger, one of them's using a Jade Rabbit, whatever it is, that's cool. But if I see a 6-stack, 4 of them have Mountaintop, the other 2 are running Gnawing Hunger, like I'm out. The game's a wash. I'm researching. We have no chance. So I'd like them to do something about team lobby balancing. I come from a viewpoint that I do want the game to be fun for everyone. And I think that there are things that Bungie can do to make it a better experience for everyone. Because this conversation isn't just gonna go away. It's always gonna be there until it's truly addressed. Because one of the real issues, just even talking about it, by nature, is that one side loses. Someone's voice isn't being heard. If you want skill-based matchmaking, you must lack skill or you just don't know that feeling of being in those lobbies. If you want connection-based, you just want to beat up on players. And of course, those are the extremes. Not everyone thinks like that, but there's a lot of that going around. It's a very rough subject. We've always been really great about it, so keep it civil down in the comment section. Someone's thoughts is their thoughts, that's their experience. It's okay to disagree. You can disagree with what I've said or with each other down in the comment section, but always be respectful. Let's have a nice conversation about it and see if we can all come to a middle ground. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.